Hello, everyone. I'm Neil Patel, and today we're going to be talking about how social media marketing will change in 2026. So, today we have with us AJ and Kayla. AJ, do you want to give a quick overview of yourself? And then, Kayla, you can do the same.
Yeah, I'm AJ Kumar. I have a company called the Limitless Company. We're a social media studio for thought leaders, and we've actually been working with Neil for a bit over 5 years now for all of his social channels.
Yeah, and I'm Kayla. I'm the social media manager here at NP Digital. I have over 10 years of digital marketing experience and excited to dive in with you all.
Cool, let's get started. So at NP Digital, we're a global shop, 1,000+ employees. We help companies with their digital marketing, including social media marketing all over the world. We work with a lot of enterprise brands that you see here, but we also work with a lot of SMB companies as well, because we have divisions that work all the way from startups to large global 1,000 companies. So we're seeing a lot of data. And when we look at our company, not only have we figured out how to make SEO and social media and paid and email to all work together, we've figured out how to do it globally. And because of that, when companies work with us, they're able to get a unified process system that not only scales, but it produces better results because people are talking to each other. And if you want us to just help you and do everything for you instead of learning it on your own, although today we'll teach you quite a bit, you can just scan that QR code. It'll take you to NP Digital and you can fill out your information, or you can just go to npdigital.com. So I want to set the stage for 2026. Okay. And if you look at that chart on the left, I know it's for Google, but it's AI overview's impact on organic traffic and revenue. As you can see, it's clearly had an impact on both traffic and revenue. Now that's Google. So you're probably wondering, what does that have to do with social media, Neil? Well, if you look at what Google's done, they're trying to keep people more in platform. And search is actually growing at a rapid pace on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Instagram gets around 6.5 billion searches on a daily basis. Most of them are for friends. YouTube's over 3 billion, I believe the last check that I checked, on a daily basis. TikTok's growing at a rapid rate. If you look at AI and the changes that's happened to social media, it's changed how content gets surfaced. It's changed how people are creating content. It's changing how people are discovering content. And one big thing to keep in mind when you're doing social media for 2026, you want to do more transactions on platform. So if you're doing transactions off platform, you're going to start seeing more expensive ads. You're going to start seeing organic not do as well. And this is really easy for B2C. You can just get them to purchase right then and there. But it's even easy for B2B as well. So for example, we use tools like ManyChat where people leave a comment and we're collecting lead information. And then from there, we are sending them materials and following up with them and trying to close deals as well. And when you look at search and how people are using each social platform, people use Instagram and YouTube for daily searches, Facebook, TikTok, weekly, X, bi-weekly, LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, but they need to get their act together. Their search feature is really terrible. I hope they improve it. But people are using searches for everything from finding products and services, learning how to use software tools, for how-tos and tutorials, for people looking at unboxing videos or brand reviews, or even finding quick answers for specific questions. Like Meta search isn't as good as Google or ChatGPT, but it is improving at a rapid rate and it's getting better. AI is also changing workflows when it comes to not just content, but social. We're at an influx point where we believe people are going to be creating more content now with AI than using humans. Now, this chart over here is for written-based content. Some social networks perform well with written-based content. Most of them are visuals. But Nano Banana and a lot of these tools out there are really good at creating, images and videos as well for social. And we're seeing more people use it because it's easier for them. Of course, we're not seeing it work as well as the non-AI generated content, but these platforms are also integrating this AI technology within there, so you can not only edit your content more easily, but eventually I also believe they'll release tools that make it easier for you to create content within Instagram and Facebook as well. And of course, when you're looking at AI and what they're citing, it's Wikipedia, it's LinkedIn, it's Forbes, it's YouTube, it's Reddit. But when you look at this, the biggest commonality here isn't Wikipedia. It's not Forbes. Look at that. On the right side for AI overviews, YouTube, Reddit, Quora, all social networks. Perplexity, Reddit, YouTube, LinkedIn, all social networks. ChatGPT, Reddit, and of course Wikipedia and Forbes aren't social networks, but you're looking at this point 7 out of the 9 top cited sources are social networks.
Yeah, and discovery isn't starting with intent anymore. It's starting when people scroll. And when that starting point moves, our strategy has to move with it. So let's take a look at what that shift actually looks like. The data makes this really clear. Social is the first stop for discovery. For B2C, this isn't really a surprise. Social feeds and creator-led content are driving the majority of early brand exposure. Consumers are starting to stumble upon brands in the middle of scrolling on social, not because they went looking, but because the algorithm put something relevant in front of them. But what's really interesting is what's happening in B2B. Decision makers are now turning to LinkedIn and YouTube earlier than they ever used to before. And those early awareness moments that search used to own, they're happening on social now. So if the discovery starts on social, that's where brands need to show up. Now, what makes social search so powerful right now is the quality of the discovery moment. So social pulls real experiences, real reviews, real demos much faster than a traditional search engine could. And because that content is coming from creators and communities, it naturally feels more authentic and trustworthy. And users also get to see the products in action, not just as static listings. They're watching someone use it, test it, explain it, which honestly answers most of their questions before they ever can think about Googling anything. And with that is real shift. For more people, the journey ends on the platform where it began, which is why we expect on-platform conversions to explode in 2026. Now, what's really interesting is how people are using social almost like it's their new search engine. They're not typing in short keywords, they're entering full questions. They want demos, they want explanations, real use cases, and they'll keep scrolling until they find something that feels credible. And because of that, expectations are changing too. Users want fast, clear explanations, and they want walkthroughs that feel like mini tutorials. They want content that solves a problem right in front of them on the spot. So the brands winning right now are ones that are creating clear, structured content that provides value, content that teaches, not just promotes. And when you look at the data, the opportunity on social becomes almost impossible to ignore. Billions of people are using these platforms every month, not just to scroll, but to search, to evaluate, and discover. And that level of consistent repeat behavior makes social one of the most powerful channels for early influence. But what really matters here is understanding where your audience is actually spending their time. And not all platforms play the same role, right? So not all audiences behave the same way. So once you understand where their attention lives, everything else in your strategy really falls into place. Your content, your messaging, your investment, it all becomes more intentional. Now, when we look at how people are actually spending their time on social, the pattern is pretty clear. As you can see in this chart, users come to platforms for entertainment, inspiration, connection, and quick hit information. Those motivations drive the entire experience. And that means if you want their attention, your content has to align with those motivations. And user controlled feeds are now shaping what people see. So relevance isn't just helpful, it's a more competitive advantage. The closer your content mirrors the reasons users show up, the more likely you are to increase brand visibility as well. Take YouTube, for example. It's now not just a place that people go for entertainment, it's becoming a primary research channel. People are using YouTube to learn, to figure things out, to understand a product before they even consider buying it. And because users are searching with purpose, it's one of the best places for brands to establish real expertise. So if you show up with clear explanations, helpful tutorials, or anything that really teaches the user something, They'll trust you before ever landing on your website. LinkedIn has also evolved into a powerful research hub. Decision makers are now using it as a credibility check before ever visiting a brand's website. They want to see who you are, what you stand for, and how your team shows up. The rise in creator-led business content has also accelerated this shift, making insights more accessible and giving professionals quick, practical learning opportunities. And unlike traditional search, LinkedIn provides real-time industry context and peer perspectives, which gives decision makers a more richer, nuanced understanding before they engage with a brand. And one of the biggest things to keep in mind here is that every generation uses social a little differently, right? So baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, they all rely on different platforms to learn, to research, or make decisions. And that's why not a one size fits all content strategy doesn't work anymore. For 2026, brands have we recommend brands having to know which platforms their audience actually trusts the most. And when you align platform behavior with messaging, you not only meet users where they are, you also increase credibility and dramatically improve engagement. Now, what's changing is how platforms decide what gets seen. Algorithms are starting to prioritize content that answers questions, explains something clearly, or solves a problem. Metadata has becoming a critical ranking signal as well. Things like strong keywords, structured captions also help platforms, surface that content in both social and in an AI. The format matters too, so the easier it is for the platform to extract the meaning, the more visibility the content receives. And this shift rewards brands that invest in educational, search optimized content rather than solely relying on the traditional feed style creative.
Okay, so the way that people discover information has fundamentally changed. People aren't waiting for content in their feeds anymore. They're actively searching inside TikTok, inside YouTube, inside Instagram, inside Reddit, the same way that they used to search on Google. And the platforms know this. They're prioritizing content that looks like answers, not an ad, not just entertainment, but something that clearly solves a problem. So content can't just be visually engaging, it has to be structured, it has to be immediately understandable, indexable, and matchable to intent. Because discovery happens before someone's following you and even before they click to your site. So we're transitioning into this content that's to be built more like an infrastructure where it answers question, it signals meaning to algorithms, and it positions you as credible instantly. So let's get a little bit more practical. So first, let's talk about clear hooks. This is the opening line or some kind of visual. You got to say something to the viewer that they were already thinking so that it feels relevant in the first second and they stop scrolling. Next, you want to have structured captions, short lines, headers, spacing. You want to make it skimmable. If it's too dense, people typically bounce. Then there's metadata, hashtags, subtitles, alt text, the titles. This labels your content so that platforms know what it's about and who should be seeing it. And then finally, searchable language. Write the way people search, talk the way people search, real problems, real questions. You don't want to say something like, hey, unlock your full potential. People are searching for, how do I fix X? You want to make the content easy to understand, easy to categorize, which makes it easy to match intention. So as AI platforms, or as platforms move towards like an AI powered discovery, the structure matters as much as the content itself. So we're talking about headlines and short blocks that make meaning more obvious at a glance. People have so many things going on in their lives, so you want to make it easy enough for them to just see it and quickly understand it, whether it's for humans or algorithms. So it's like you want to have bullet points, you want to have lists, you want to break ideas into more scannable chunks. People typically aren't reading, they skim, and then something triggers them in their mind that makes them pay attention. AI is essentially extracting meaning the same way. You also have on-screen text and subtitles, which give the platforms the keywords and the context that they need. If the words don't appear visually, the system may not always pick it up. And then like we talked about, you want to incorporate natural language phrasing, because AI is not going to be just decoding dense marketing language that well. It does better with clear sentences and conversational structure. Just remember that, like, you're not just communicating to your audience, you're communicating in a way that algorithms can parse, they could classify and deliver. Captions are something that people really dismiss, but they're becoming a lot more critical for discoverability. People are treating social platforms like we've been talking about, like search engines. They're typing full-blown questions, not even just single keywords. The consumer's behavior has changed drastically over the last decade. So the same way they were using Google search, they're asking questions directly into TikTok, directly into Instagram. So you want to lead with the problem or the question. If the first line in your caption reflects what someone's looking for, it becomes a lot easier for the algorithm to match it to the right intent. So you want to use clear, descriptive language, short sentences, real phrases, not the poetic and abstract stuff that, like something like ChatGPT gives you. You want to actually think about it and think about how people are actually looking for answers. So you want to match, and you also want to match the different platforms, because something somebody searches on LinkedIn is going to be a lot different than what someone's going to be searching on TikTok or even YouTube. So you want to understand that and then match that tone, which is ultimately going to improve your visibility and your relevance. Then you want to be intentional with the hashtags that you used. A lot of platforms are reducing the number of hashtags you could even use on post to like 2 or 3. So random tags don't help unless you're doing some kind of marketing campaign. Rather, you want to be really intentional with the hashtags that you have, so that you're reinforcing the actual idea. The captions aren't just a filler like a lot of people used to think about before. They're metadata. They're actually helping platforms understand what problems you solve and who should see that solution. We're all visual at the end of the day, and these platforms use visual cues to understand what your content is about, not just the captions or the audio. So when you have the opportunity, you want to incorporate on-screen keywords that help the system identify the topic immediately. If key terms appear visually, then it just makes it a lot more faster and more accurate for platforms to categorize you. And even on platforms like YouTube, YouTube is more of a click and watch platform than just a constant viewing experience platform. So you want to think about how thumbnails act like a decision filter. People have seconds because they have billions of choices that are available at their fingertips. So you want to make it so that you can easily communicate what your content is about in a way where there's a clear topic, there's a clear design, it's readable. And to do that, you do want to incorporate simple, readable layouts, because that's ultimately going to improve retention and the comprehension when somebody does look at it from a glance. Because if you have too much stuff going on, people's brains don't know where to focus. So you want to have just a few points of focus on these visuals. You're not just designing for aesthetics. It's a communication tool. If it makes your topic obvious, your value obvious, your intent obvious, then it's more likely going to result in a person actually consuming that content. In a world where platforms index videos visually, clarity definitely performs better. So AI removes the friction around content planning. The thing is, everyone has access to AI tools to help them write and an endless supply of creative ideas. So it's not that most teams don't struggle with creativity. They mainly struggle with starting. And the beauty of AI is that it surfaces topics that are going to be based on real-time trends. You're not needing to just guess what people care about, and you don't need to spend a fortune on all these different focus groups. You have the ability to get that information a lot faster so that you're responding to the demand that already exists. Because then with AI, you could build outlines and content calendars in minutes so that it's less time planning and it's more time producing really good content. AI is going to suggest variations for different formats, different audiences. Like you could take one idea and then package it differently depending on the platform. And it's going to help you be a lot more consistent, because even as output increases, scaling is going to be a lot easier when you're inspired, right? The consistency is the hard part. AI is not going to just replace your creative thinking. It's ultimately going to replace the time-consuming steps that prevented creativity from even happening in the first place. And there's different tools, right? Like the AI tools are going to act as an extension of your brain. It's going to make it easier to find angles that people care about. You can have one topic that's boring, but if you come at it from a different angle, all of a sudden you make it interesting. And tools are there to help you do that. Notion AI turns trends and topics into prompts. That's going to help you get a better understanding of what's going to give you traction, what kind of conversations people want to join, because that's what's happening. There's conversations happening all across the social web. You want to make your conversations interesting enough that people want to participate in them. ChatGPT is available at your fingertips. You can generate hooks, outlines, variations super fast. So you're not staring at a blank page. You're starting from structured ideas that you can edit and refine. It's not just, hey, let me just get this one thing and then throw it out there. You got to actually think about it. And a tool like ChatGPT makes it happen a lot faster. FeedHive is another great tool that's going to keep your messaging consistent across different formats, different channels. Again, a big challenge that a lot of people have, and I've heard this from Neil for over a decade, is that inconsistency kills momentum. Whether it's algorithmically and psychologically, because if you start to stumble and not do the things that you're going to do, then you start to have shifts in your mindset that then start to prevent you from actually doing it. And then you have these psychological barriers. Then there's all these native trend tools that allow you to spot emerging topics before they peak. You want to definitely take advantage of that, because there's all these conversations that are happening. And the sooner that you could see what's going on, then the sooner you could be a part of that versus chasing that. And tools like these make creativity a lot more scalable, just reducing the time and the guesswork that's involved. So when it comes to these ideas, it's not that you just post one thing and then that's all it is. One idea could actually fuel multiple formats without even all this extra effort. Like a LinkedIn post could become a carousel, a blog could be a Reddit answer, a long form video could become a TikTok, a YouTube short, even an Instagram reel, right? Like you could take one long form and turn it into 4, 5, 6, 7 different shorts. And AI makes this conversion happen a lot faster. You don't need to manually rewrite everything. You could extract, repackage, and publish. People aren't going to be seeing your content all at once. They're going to be seeing it across different platforms at different times in different formats. So the strategy isn't just to make more content, it's to make one idea work a lot harder. The game isn't production volume. It's about distribution efficiency. So here's an example of a stack that teams should be incorporating into their workflows. Tools like Descript, Opus Clip, Canva, they handle a lot of the cutting, the clipping, the packaging. We talked about ChatGPT. You could rewrite, adapt, and script variations super fast. And now you have products like Google VO that can help you enhance your content in incredible different ways. Creativity is a faucet, and you just have to turn it on. All of this is reducing all the manual labor that went into editing, writing, redesigning, which again kills consistency. So instead of starting from scratch, you're feeding your system raw material, and then you're letting it turn one idea into a full cross-platform presence. The system matters more than the content value, because if the system works, the content scales a lot faster. So let's talk about long form video. We work with Neil with a lot of his long form YouTube content. Long form content is a powerful source for short term growth, for short form videos. So you want to import the long form, you want to identify high retention moments in there, then you want to clip them automatically. You add captions, you add overlays, you publish it across platforms. This works because long form conversations are naturally producing really good sound bites. There's emotional reactions, there's insights, there's arguments, there's jokes. It's difficult to just come up with like an 8-second quip of something that you're going to say that you just turn into a short form video. A lot of the time.
So AJ, sorry to cut you off, but I want to make it a little bit more tangible and relatable to the audience. So when we film, AJ is the one who records a lot of my content and then edits it up. When we film the content in your office, okay, and we're doing long form videos, we script it out. And we script it out for one really important purpose. It's for a ton of the hooks that we're adding to the content, right? So with a long form video, how many subhooks do we have within the content?
So with each long form, there's maybe about 4 to 6 different hooks that we create that are specifically designed to make it so that these clips become standalone, meaning that they can work without the context of the full long form.
Bingo. Okay, so what we do, and this makes content filming really efficient, because if you look at my videos stuff, we produce content pretty much every day of the week, but I'm not actually recording. All right. And I'm not going to tell you the time. AJ will tell you the time. How long does it take me to film one long form video?
Typically around 20 to 30 minutes.
That's including flubs, errors, me messing up, taking sips of water, etc. And we're doing a 2-camera setup, one in the front, one in the side, whatever angle. You can pick whatever you think your best side is. I don't really care. They just set it up, on whatever side they want. So we tend to produce a video. So it takes me 30 minutes to drive to his office. I'm a slow driver. It takes me 30 minutes to drive home. So we try to batch him, and I have to pay for parking, which, his parking building, I think it costs $20. Some things I'm really cheap. I don't know why. I guess I'm. So when you look at my time that's being spent, it's an hour to get there and come back home in total. And we try to do at least 2 videos at a time. We usually don't do more than 4 or 5 videos a month. Okay. So if you take out driving out of the equation, I could actually create all 5 of the videos in one session. You agree with this, AJ?
Yeah.
If we do the lunch break, right? So sometimes we take like a break, do lunch, re-energizes, and then we'll go film again. But within that video, so in theory, if I'm doing 5 videos, 20 minutes a pop, that's an hour and 40 minutes. Okay. Let's round to 2 hours. I'm creating a whole month's worth of content because we planned the subhooks within there. The subhooks, think of it just like as a chapter of a story. And what we're doing is we're telling a story. Each chapter could be standalone, but it all fits together. And that chapter has a hook. You take the chapter and you take the hook, and we'll create quick sound bites from it and chop them up from social media. So if the video typically has 6-7 chapters, you agree with this, AJ?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's roughly for us 6-7 short form videos. That's how we produce long form and short form content in roughly 2 hours in a month. Now here's a caveat. Once a week, we'll publish the long form video on all the social platforms. The rest of the time, we'll take the short forms and publish them. So 6 short forms, 1 long form. That creates 7 pieces a day. Then we do some images as well. That Salo, who's in the back room or whatever you want to call it, backstage, he helps with the charts and the data and our team there. But when you look at the video stuff, you may be thinking, oh, you're publishing the short forms that are from the long forms, and you also publish the long forms, that people aren't going to like it. People don't care. They don't notice. They still like it. Sorry to derail you. Keep
No,
going.
you're good. I think that's really important, because ultimately you're wanting to become this topical authority, and you're creating these long form videos that are making this big point, and each long form video has these talking points, and each of these talking points essentially gets splintered, and like Neil talks about, then we're putting that across all these different platforms so that people see you at different times, different talking points, but they're all ultimately part of this cohesive conversation that you're having with people. Okay, then let's talk about similarly when it comes to blogs. Uh, a structured blog content also scales pretty easily. So similarly, like how we talked about a long form video and what that could become, you could come up with your ideas and turn it into a structured blog post. And a blog post has, like the survey is done, a blog post has all these different elements that make it strong and viable. And you could take different pieces of that blog post and turn it into a variety of different content. Whether it's the headline becomes a LinkedIn breakdown, the subheads become carousel slides, sections of this blog post become short form scripts. Core insights that you extract from it could also become a Reddit answer. Or you could take the highlights from the blog post and then turn it into an email, right? So you got to think intelligently about when you're creating content, different types of long form content, whether it's videos or it's blog posts, because then you could repackage it in different ways. A lot of what you're doing and what you got to understand is that social media platforms are ultimately communication tools, and you're an expert in your field, and your goal is to make that content a lot more accessible and easier for people to understand in a way where it's standalone, meaning that they don't need all of it to understand what it is that you're talking about. So a lot of what you're doing is you're creating these workflows where it's less about creativity, it's more about repackaging. Your content stops just being like a one-off effort, and when you're doing it like this, it becomes a lot more efficient, and then you have this multi-surface narrative that people are seeing on different platforms. And then obviously you want to incorporate different automation tools, because automation handles a lot of the repetitive work that's going to slow teams down. And again, this is a big part of that conversation, that it kills consistency. So you want to use tools like Scraper API that's going to pull public data from profiles. It's going to scrape keywords, and it's going to help you identify opportunities. There's AI agents like Clay or Apollo that's going to help you personalize outreach. You're going to be able to sequence your messages. You're going to adjust your tone for different platforms. It's going to allow you to do a lot of different tasks at once. And this is going to shift your time from just manually pulling lists to the human part that you ultimately want to strive to doing, which is building relationships, having conversations, closing deals, the really powerful revenue generating activities. The automation is not going to replace the connection. It's going to replace the repetitive work that's stopping you from making the connections. Then there's trend scraping, right? Like we talked about trends. You got to think about the social web is that there's all these different conversations that are happening. And trend scraping is about doing market research at the speed of the algorithm, right? There's tools that allow you to figure out what kind of content is taking off. You could be following certain people. You could be following certain brands that start to give you insight into what's going on. Or you could actively use TikTok. If you're trying to post on TikTok, actively use TikTok so you can better understand what's going on there. Or even going on Reddit and the different subreddits, because the tools are going to help you understand what the velocity, what the engagement, what the relevance is about these topics. Because when you learn to spot them early on, you're joining the conversation while it's growing, not after it peaks, which is what happens with most brands, just because they're moving too slow. So being early gives you that more compounding reach. Whereas when you're late, now you have to put in so much more effort because you're competing with all this saturation, right? So trend scraping, stops you from guessing, and it's going to help you with more so aligning your content with whatever the real-time demand is. Smart apps. Okay, so let's talk about smart outreach with AI agents. AI does personalize outreach at scale. It's going to look at who you're targeting, what they've posted, what they care about, and then help you select the hooks that are going to most likely get you the response. Because you got to tailor your conversation to the different types of people that you're talking with. You want a tool that's going to help you rewrite the message to match the different platforms, right? Whether it's LinkedIn, it's your email, it's SMS, because you want it to sound natural. People are inundated with all these messages coming from all these different directions. So in order for you to stand out, you got to match the different platforms. Like on an SMS, you're not going to write a super long paragraph. You gotta talk like a friend that's talking with somebody on SMS. Every reply, every non-reply, then this all becomes data for you. And then you learn from that, and then you implement that into the next batch of your outreach. So this way you're getting away from just generic templates, and you're adapting your messages more automatically. And a lot of this, because a lot of you guys are at this place where you want to become a thought leader in your space, because that's who people are paying attention to. It's harder for people to trust traditional media outlets. People are now going to people that they see on social media. So the opportunity to be a thought leader is the best it's ever been. And as you've seen with Neil and NP Digital and what they've accomplished, thought leadership has become a major part of it, because they could see that Neil is leading the conversations within that industry. Now, AI doesn't make you a thought leader, but it does make your thought leadership more consistent and visible. And like Neil has always talked about, consistency plays a big part of it. So that you could take one insight, turn it into multiple formats, and then publish it more steadily, right? And over time, as all these different AI platforms are evaluating your expertise on all these different platforms, AI is going to ultimately help you make your tone a lot more consistent, make your voice a lot more consistent across your different channels. And then you as a brand become a lot more cohesive. I always compare it to like a Rubik's Cube. Most people have a brand that's just scrambled and they don't know what's what. And your goal is to make it so that on Instagram, on Facebook, on ChatGPT, on Gemini, on Perplexity, on all these different platforms that you're working on, you have this cohesive brand so that all the colors are what they need to be on all the different sides, just like what a Rubik's Cube looks like when it's complete. The hard part isn't having the ideas. It's packaging and distributing the ideas consistently. It's a fundamental thing. Consistency sounds like it's so easy, but it does take discipline, and discipline is the thing that most teams struggle with, just because of all of the technical challenges that one faces when you're trying to create content at scale.
On a side note, we should take that Rubik's Cube topic and create a short out of it.
Yeah,
Do decently well,
of course.
right? Because we can show the image of the Rubik's Cubes, unscramble, the different colors, change the colors to YouTube's logo, Instagram. You get the point, right, for each side. And it'll probably do decently well.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. We'll make it for a long from a short. Okay, so all of this, there's a lot of effort that goes into creating content. And obviously, you're not just making content just to get applause, just to get likes, just to get engagement. So let's talk about measuring impact in the zero-click world. People are discovering brands without even clicking. They see content in their feeds, they see summaries, they see communities, and then they form opinions before they even visit websites. So the top of funnel impact is happening invisibly. And traffic isn't showing the full story. And in a lot of Neil's videos, a lot of his YouTube videos, he talks about this in a lot of detail. And this is uncomfortable for most marketers because it breaks that whole attribution conversation, which so many people struggle with. But it's powerful for brands because it's going to be easier to build trust earlier. If your content influences thinking before people even click, then you have a higher chance of winning. So some of the new top of funnel metrics, it's evolving beyond just impressions or traffic. Now we're looking at how often your content appears in AI summaries, where you show up relative to your competitors, how AI interprets sentiment about your brand, which sources reference you in discovery moments, whether that influences your revenue down the line or not, right? And there's tools like Ubersuggest that help you see a lot of this data, right? These metrics, they're going to reflect visibility and influence. This is what I call ROAC, your return on attention created. You're essentially creating attention across all these different platforms, and the attention becomes currency that then you monetize in a variety of different ways, whether it's trust or it's leads, right? Metrics are going to be what show that you're shaping that narrative in consumers' minds before they become a lead. Now, authority is increasingly defined by how often platforms are going to cite you as a source, right? Are you mentioned in generated answers? Are you positioned as an expert or an example? Do multiple sources reference you? Do you appear across related queries? If the system keeps pulling your name into explanations, now you're not just visible, but now you're relevant. And that's the most important thing that all brands want is relevancy. Because if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. Now, why citations matter more than just CTR. Clicks measure whether people left the platforms. Citations measure whether people are going to trust you. Citations show that the platforms view your content as credible, as relevant, and worthy of referencing in the moments that they're discovering what they're looking for. Those references are going to influence their decisions before any traffic shows up in your analytics. Neil talks about, he gives this example about Formula One cars and how there's logos on Formula One cars. And as you see these logos over and over and over again, it subconsciously plants that brand in people's minds. And as people start to see you cited more and more and more, you're ultimately getting more and more of this, of your brand implanted in people's minds. Because the goal isn't just to create, it's not just to chase the clicks, it's to build this semantic presence. Because in these zero-click environments, the influence is more upstream of traffic.
Yeah, when you start tracking how your content performs, you learn a lot about what actually resonates. Look at which platforms end up sharing or referencing your posts. That tells you where your content naturally takes off, and then pay attention to what your audience amplifies. So sometimes the moments that they latch onto aren't the ones that you would normally expect, and that's great insight for knowing what to create more of. And finally, watch which formats spread the fastest, whether it's short form video or carousels. The formats that perform the best show you where exactly to double down on. And as social platforms shift towards zero click, brands need more ways to connect visibility with real business outcomes. So that's where revenue per click comes in. It shows you how much value each visit is actually generating, even when impressions are high but traffic is low. And then there's lead velocity. This tells you how quickly qualified leads move through the funnel after they engage with your content. And it's a much stronger indication of momentum than just looking at form fills. And together, these metrics bridge the gap between platform engagement and revenue generation, giving brands a clearer, more accurate view of performance in today's zero click environment. Now, when you start thinking about discovery happening across so many platforms, the next step is making sure that you actually see everything in one place. That's where cross-channel dashboards come in. So tools like Ubersuggest help you track rankings, keyword gaps, and what people are searching for across both AI and traditional search. Answer the Public, my personal favorite, gives you question-based hooks that people use across platforms, which are valuable insights for creating educational, search-optimized content. And workflow tools like Liddy or Make.com automate the multi-channel tracking and consolidate reporting, giving teams a unified view of intent and performance. And together, all of these tools really help you create a cohesive system for understanding and responding to demand across every single channel. Now, when we look at social search and web search, they play two totally different roles in the way that people find information. On social, users ask full questions, not just keywords, and the results that they get are creator led, visually appealing, and quick to digest. And it's all about fast discovery and real experiences. On the web, search is still strong when someone wants more research or detailed comparisons, and ranking is built on structured pages and SEO, and users expect to spend a little more time to read through the information. So ultimately, the difference comes down to user intent. Social captures early, rapid discovery moments, while web search supports deliberate research, and brands wanting to be successful in 2026 need to optimize for both.
All right, so now let's talk about turning 2026 into a competitive advantage, and then we'll get into Q&A shortly. So if you think about everything that was presented today, you need to really look at what are the main things you need to do in 2026 to succeed. First, you got to treat social platforms as discovery engines, and you want to optimize your content not just for views, not just for virality, but more so in a similar fashion to how you would optimize for search, in which people are typing all these queries on these platforms. You want your content to show up so that way you can rank higher and continually get that evergreen traffic. Because if you look at most social content, you publish on these platforms, it gets a lot of views in the first 24 hours, maybe 48, some more. And if you're lucky within the week, after a week, it really starts dying down. But if you start optimizing your content to show when people search, you'll continually get views over time. Second, you want to build workflows to turn one idea into many assets. So the example that AJ and I were talking about when I sadly interrupted him on how I create a long form video, we then create hooks for each chapter. We make sure that they work as a standalone when we're scripting. And when I'm recording straight up, AJ can confirm this, I just read lines from a teleprompter, like word for word. And that way it goes quick, it's efficient, and that way we have our shorts that have that punch. You want them to have that impact versus sounding soft, and the hooks not being as strong. Then you want to track your visibility. You can use tools like Ubersuggest. We have an AI visibility report, but you also want to see how you're doing on these social platforms. ATP can help a little bit with this. And then you want to use AI to accelerate everything from scripting to planning to editing to getting content out there to helping you find more clippable short form moments. And then, of course, you want to measure your revenue. If you do all this stuff and you can't generate an extra dollar in revenue, it doesn't matter. Your direct conversions from social are going to be low for organic. But what you should see is when you do studies or surveys with your customers, a lot of them will have found you from social first, even though that's not the channel that shows up as a conversion. And if you want us to help you with 2026, whether it's your social strategy, your content marketing, your SEO, your paid ads, email marketing, conversion optimization, CTV, it doesn't matter. Hit us up at npdigital.com. You can also just scan that QR code and it'll take you to NP Digital and you can fill out your information. So Colin, let's start diving into some questions.
Oh yeah, good stuff. We started off sort of with some of the basics and then quickly led in with the advanced stuff. So lots of questions, lots of comments. I'm going to start with you, Neil. There were several folks on YouTube that said, do you think all of these suggestions, tools, etc., can be applied to SMBs that don't have a big budget, oftentimes only one or two employees? Any sort of just initial thoughts on the one or two man shops trying to dip their toes in all of this stuff? Do they start with one channel? Is there one tool? I think there were a lot of questions about affordability for SMBs. So any thoughts there would be appreciated.
You're saying should they start with one channel or one tool or?
Yeah, just in general, like where to start if you're a one or two man shop.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're a one or two man shop, I would create content. You can use AI to help you. It's not going to be as good, just being really honest. Or you can record in the studio or just bust out your phone and start recording. And I would take that same piece of content. This is not ideal. and just post it on all the social channels. Okay, use the same description, same video piece of content. And what you'll want to do is see which channels resonate with what content types. The ones where the same piece works on multiple platforms and those platforms do really well, keep posting on those platforms the same piece of content. As your revenue grows, the channels that you're posting the same piece of content that wasn't getting traction, create content just for that channel and see what happens. But you don't want to do that at the beginning because it's expensive to create unique content for each channel, even though that performs better. And if I was a 1 or 2 man shop, I would use AI to help more so edit than actually record. And then I would just post the same piece of content on all the channels and see what happens. Not ideal, but that's the most economical way to start. And that's what I recommend for most SMBs. I actually even recommend that a lot for enterprises as well, because it's overwhelming to do all the channels at once, even if you have a big budget.
Yeah, you can test and see what channel works best for you. There were a lot of questions about hashtags being dead. I don't know if AJ or Kayla wants to weigh in on that, but like 6 or 7 people said, are hashtags still a thing? Use them, don't use them. Maybe AJ, start with you.
Yeah,
And Neil, you've
but
got something to say.
before AJ, you answer the hashtag, one quick thing. If you're a small and medium business, before I would even create the content for the social platforms, try text-based content on LinkedIn or X or Facebook. If it hits, then go create a video out of it, and you can just read it line for line. If it doesn't hit, then don't waste your time creating the content on that, because what you'll find is you just created a piece of video that's not going to get traction. If the text hits, usually the video hits. It's cheaper, easier, quicker to do crank out text. You can use AI to help you with that as well. But test out text, the text that hits, then create social content for the platforms for it. You'll have a lot less duds.
Awesome. AJ, thoughts on hashtags? And then Kayla, any thoughts on hashtags?
Yeah, I would say it's like the least important thing. It did help with discoverability in the past, just with the old social media, but today it has different use cases, but it's not going to give you the kind of reach that you would hope for. It's more like you're just categorizing your content.
Yeah, I agree there. I think the only thing that we're still doing that we always recommend to our clients, especially when creating search optimized content, is still incorporating that target keyword as a hashtag or a different variation of that target keyword. We've done this for many of our clients, and it has helped, all together, the way that we're formatting as well as those hashtags just be visible on both search on Google and on social. So definitely, like AJ said, it's not a do or die, but definitely something to keep in mind, especially when creating search optimized content.
Cool. Neil, I think this one's probably best for you, but there were several folks asking if social signals actually help establish greater EEAT in search. I know that social has been sort of like in the mix with search for a long time, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely believe it does, because if you look at these search engines, a lot of them have data deals directly from some of these social networks. Facebook, Instagram, those are the hardest to get data deals from because they want to keep their data. But TikTok, Reddit, the smaller players, Snap, Twitter, etc., they're more flexible and open to the data deals.
Awesome.
YouTube as well.
AJ, one for you. Have you found that a universal caption for the same reel or post can work across platforms, or should we always have different captions for essentially the same reel? Any thoughts there?
Ideally, you're making it based off of the context. Like something on LinkedIn would be a lot different than something on TikTok versus Instagram. Typically, stuff on Instagram and TikTok work hand in hand, whereas on YouTube, also it's going to be different. YouTube Short, you want it to be more like a headline. So I would say that the platform context matters.
Yeah, and they all have their own sort of best practices and whatnot. So you could always look there too. So another one for you, AJ. Lots of questions when we were talking about maybe a long form video sort of being chopped up with multiple hooks. Is there a prompt we can use to create batch content off of one idea? I would imagine ChatGPT could maybe help with this. Like if you have one thought, can AI actually help us create the additional hooks? Any thoughts there, or something that you're doing currently?
I would look at it as a long form piece of content is like one really big idea. And then within that one really big idea are like talking points or sub ideas. So you still want all of the talking points to support the big idea so that when you're putting this into your AI, you're trying to get really clear on what is the message that's being communicated? What are the sub messages that are being communicated? And then based off of that, these can be little standalone pieces of content that reinforce that big idea that you're creating.
Yeah, it's like a chapter. It's like a chapter within the book. And then, sorry to keep picking on you, AJ, but you did a lot of speaking. Can you go a bit more in detail about trend scraping? One tool to maybe look at or use, and what's sort of like the high level overview or the process there. Like if we're trying to identify trend, I know Answer the Public is really good at this because it can pick up on what people are searching for. But if you've got any favorite tools or just additional steps in a process, there were lots of questions about trend scraping.
I think what's even better, there are tools like Answer the Public and a few other ones that was mentioned, but doing it manually and following certain creators that are on these different platforms, whether it's on TikTok and Instagram, and you're following certain creators, you could get a sense for them because a lot of people are already doing that research. So if you're following already the thought leaders in the different niches, you'll get insight into what they're talking about. On top of that, you could even go into different Reddit forums. You could look at books that are coming out because a lot of the books that are coming out are prepared for the following year. So if you're going to these really top tier publishers like Simon & Schuster and so on, you could see what books are coming out, and based off of that, you kind of get an idea. Like back in 2015 or so, the big topic of conversation was like sleep, right? Then there was nootropics. Like there's all these different conversations are happening. You could also look to see what other countries are talking about because a lot of the natural organic movement that was happening here, in the last 7, 8, 9 years or so was already happening in Europe before that. So think about it in those terms, and obviously things like Google Trends and Answer the Public, that'll give you insights into the types of questions that people are actually asking.
We'll end it there. Top of the hour. Good stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. If you need help with any of your marketing, check us out at NP Digital. Appreciate your time. You guys have a wonderful day.